Okay, hi everyone. So today we're just going to have a quick look at creating a simple street scene, and we're going to use a HDRI image. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of an idea of what a finished object might look like as I move around. So I've just taken this one using the Google Pixel camera, and this is just down in a laneway here in Hobart, and we can see that I've got just a placeholder of the monkey head sitting here, and you can see that it reflects the environment, and it also casts a shadow on the ground of the environment as well. So you'll be able to create a more complex sculpture or piece of street art that sits into this scene, and I'll show you how to do that as we go along. And if you want to, I can just show you just quickly, is I've just got a really quick rendered out animation of the monkey head just kind of like sitting there in 3D space, spinning around with a sort of weird reflective finish on it as well. So I think part of the fun of these is doing something strange that sits in an environment where you wouldn't normally see something, you know, like that. So, okay, so let's just pop out to Blender and we'll get things underway. So the first thing really to do is you want to start out with a new file. Okay, so HDRI is pretty easy to set up, and I'll show you how it happens. Okay, so first thing that we do is in the bottom window here, we just go between the two. We're just going to pull this panel up. A little bit touchy sometimes. Sorry, my desk's a little rough there. Okay, so we've got, this is a timeline at the moment. Let's just change that to become a node editor. That's good. And we'll make sure that we pop into cycles render if you haven't already up the top here. So I'm using Blender 2.7.9. This is going to move around a little bit in Blender 2.8, which is due out reasonably soon. Okay, so I'm going to go to the World tab here. It looks like a picture of the planet Earth, and I'm going to click on Use Nodes. That's great, okay. And now when I'm in Nodes down here, there's another World tab, and it's going to show me, if I zoom in, so I'm just using my mouse to zoom in, using the scroll wheel, and at the moment, our world, if we have a look at it, so let me just pop it into rendered, we can see that the world is grey, basically. We've got this grey colour, it's hooked up to a grey surface, which wraps around our world in a spherical shape. So let's change that up now. And what we're going to do is we're going to go texture. We're going to add an environment texture. And that's looking good. So I'm going to hook up yellow to yellow. And what I'm doing here now, the first thing you can see is that this goes a magenta color. And this tells us that we're missing a file. So I'm just going to open up a file. I'm going to go to my desktop where I've got the file, that starter file that we've made. Close my YouTube recommendations there. I'm just going to open this image. So it's a Pano JPEG. Okay, I took it down in town the other day, and when I open it up, first thing we can see now is that it wraps around our scene, and what used to be just a cube on a grey scene is now a grey cube on a street scene. Okay. Now, it's one thing about this is that the cube doesn't throw any shadow. We'll have a look at how to do that next. So what we're going to do is going to go back to solid mode again, and I'm going to make sure I'm in object mode. I'm going to go Shift A, and I'm going to add a plane, and I'm going to just bring it down, grabbing the arrows, and I'm going to scale that plane up. That's good. And another thing that we've got in this scene is we've got a basic light source up here. So I've got my plane down below, and I've got my light source up here. So I'm going to click on my light source. Again, I'm in object mode all the time. I'm going to come across, and I might set that as a sun. Okay. The sun shows us what's happening. We can see the direction of the light here, which is great. And we're going to click on Use Nodes with this as well. Okay, so we're looking good. I'm going to flip it back to rendered mode for a minute, and we can see I can zoom in on this cube and move around a little bit. You can see that I've got a shadow casting by the cube, but I can also see that grey on the surface there. I'm going to make sure that, go back to solid, select the floor that we've got here, and I'm going to have a look at the geometry down the bottom. So let's have a look at this plane, click on the cube, come right down to the bottom, and you're going to see cycle settings. We're going to scroll down into that, and we're going to have a look here, and we're going to turn off probably diffuse, glossy, and turn on shadow catcher. Okay, so what that means is, let's just go and have a look now. Okay, so if I flip shadow catcher off, you can see the whole object. If I turn shadow catcher on, you'll see that we don't see the object anymore, we just see the shadow. Okay, so that gives us our shadow on the ground, which helps us to understand how big an object might be and where it's located in the scene. Right. Okay, so we've now got our cube sitting in the scene, and as I move it, so I'll just go back to solid mode, as I move it closer to the ground, it'll look like our cube. You can see here it's shadowed, so it's looking like it's sitting on the ground. So move it around, okay, we can see it looks anchored there, and we can see that it's kind of like a fake effect. As I move it back, it looks like it's bigger because it's sitting back further in the scene, but it's still got that shadow that's tying it to the ground. So this is just something you can experiment with. So I'm just holding down my middle mouse button and looking around to get it sorted. Okay, that's good. So let's get a little bit more complicated with what we're doing. So I'm going to get onto this cube here, and I might start to texture it out into kind of a random geometric object. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go from object mode, and I'm going to go into edit mode for this object. Sorry. Okay, we're in edit mode. I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to select face mode, which is this one here, face select. I'm going to click on one edge. I'm going to hit E for extrude, and you can see I can start to extrude my object. Okay, that's good. Okay, so each time I extrude, it creates new geometry. I can select a new face, and it will extrude for me. Okay, and you can create some sort of like, and I can hit S for scale things down, E for extrude. Okay, and you'll be able to start to create these sort of complex geometric shapes, leaving little faces means you can extrude them out in bits and pieces, and I'll leave it up to your imagination how you deal with that. Other things that you can do is you can select the whole thing, hit W and go subdivide, will give you lots more faces, and then you can keep adding and deleting, extruding bits out, give it some texture, get some random faces, scale that one in. I can scale some into the object as well. Scale this one up to a point. Okay, so I've started to get a a random looking object. So I push that in, I scale that in. Let's extrude that in, let's scale it down. Okay, so that's looking good. So that's just a really simple object. It's up to you how complicated you make it. So we can pop it into rendered mode now, and we can see that this object's starting to sit here in this 3D space. We might like to give it a little bit more texture, and let's add a surface to it. So we're going to go use nodes, ring materials. That's good. Let's change it from a diffuse to just really quickly. Maybe let's put a glass on it for starters, and we can see that we've got a glass sculpture that's sitting there in our scene. Okay, we can adjust it for height. Now, one way that I don't mind to do that is just by dragging this panel down a little bit and changing this one into a 3D view. Okay, So once I've got it in 3D view like this, I'll go back out to object mode. I can then move the object in that window up there, and I can just start to get a feel for how it sits in the environment. Okay, now it's a little hard to see that glass because it's white. Maybe I'll change it to a green glass, and you'll start to see it a little bit more. Okay, so that's good. We can look down on it. We can start to get a feel for what it's doing. I could say swap it to a glossy if I want a more metallic type of look to the object. You can see initially the glossy is like a full mirror finish, but as we start to add a roughness to the finish, it becomes reflective. And a bit more like a like a matte aluminium or something like that. So you just got to play with the finish and just play with your materials. You can add multiple materials to an object. If we go to, let's go to material view. Okay, that's pretty good. We can go into edit mode for this object. We could select some random bits of this object. That's good. And I could, if I wanted to, I could add in another material, and I can go new. I can change that to say totally different color. I'm going to just assign it to those faces that I've got selected. And now you'll see that if I go back out to rendered again, you'll see that my object now has got multiple materials on it. So I might change that one to a glass, so we can sort of see into our object a bit. We could put a light inside it if you wanted to. Look, it's totally up to you. So let me just pop. I might make it a little bit more neutral. Okay, so you can see that I've started to get a glass object sitting in the environment. And then you can start to play with adding extra lights into the environment to light up your glass, and make it look better. Okay, so that's pretty much the whole technique. There's a couple of extra bits where we can have a look at adding a camera and animating the camera to create like a looping GIF of the image. And we might do that in part 2. But for now, that's really all you need to do. If you have, if you've got this far, you've done well. If you want to head into town after school or whatever and create these 360-degree spherical panoramas, yeah, have a go at it. Bring back the results and you can share them with the class, and we can all have a go at building some, interesting sculptural street sculptures. Okay, so that is part 1 of the series, and I'll come back in part 2 to show you how to animate the camera. Thank you.